1 rupee. That's all he charged to defend India at the ICJ in Kulbhushan Jadhav case. The same man who convinced the Supreme Court that Delhi must switch to CNG, changing how an entire city breathes. The lawyer who argued the Vodafone tax case for 17 straight days and won, only for the parliament to rewrite the law overnight with retrospective taxation. Trusted by Mukesh Ambani, hired in the Adani Hindenburg storm, called to sports tribunal for Olympic athletes, and still when the tricolour called, his price was 1 symbolic rupee. August 2025 on national television, he said it plainly. Politicians are not a privileged class. From Nagpur by-lanes to London Queen's Council chambers, from smoky Delhi buses to billion-dollar deals, this is a lawyer whose preparation and patriotism made him India's courtroom legend. But how did a boy who failed his CA exams twice became the man India turns to when everything is on the line? This is Harish Salve, the invincible. (1975), the emergency years. Bombay's Oberoi suite, velvet carpets, polished chandeliers, and yet the air was heavy, not with perfume, but with tension. A courtroom drama outside the courtroom. The income tax department versus Bollywood's tragedy king, Dilip Kumar. In that hotel suite, across files stacked like a fortress, sat the legends of law, and there at the edge of the room stood a young man carrying files for his father, chartered accountant N.K.P. Salve. And that boy was Harish. Too young to argue, but too curious to ignore. His pen moved faster than his age should allow, scribbling notes, absorbing every pause, every question. And then it happened. Nani Palkiwala, India's greatest tax lawyer, flipped through a note written by Harish. He looked up. Room froze. And he asked, almost casually, yet with thunderous weight, "So, when are you joining law, young man?" That single question cut through Harish like destiny itself. It was no longer about carrying files, it was about carrying arguments. The family had already set the tone. A grandfather who fought in criminal courts, a father who mastered finance, a mother who healed the patients. But Harish's most powerful teacher wasn't human at all. It lived in the rustles of leaves, the growl of a tiger, the silence of waiting. It was the forest of Melghat. Every weekend the Salves drove into the Melghat Tiger Reserve. There the jungle whispered its own law. The tiger hunts or starves. The deer survives only if it is sharp. Beauty offers no mercy. And the judgment is final. From rustling leaves came the patience. From silence, observation. In the wild, he grasped the first rule of advocacy. Survival belongs to the prepared. Years later, judges said he listened longer, studied deeper, and struck with precision. That instinct was born not in a law library but in the jungle. But destiny isn't a straight line, of course. Harish failed his chartered accountancy exam not once but twice. Most people break at failure, but he bent and then he turned. In 1980, he joined the Bar Council of Delhi. He left behind the comforts of Nagpur, choosing the risk of Delhi's ruthless courts. Failure had redirected him towards greatness. He lives by simple rules. Stay fit, stay sharp. Don't fight in court if you can settle outside. Don't waste a judge's time. Respect the truth, respect fairness. And remember, true conviction is not about shouting. It's about being clear. In Delhi, he trained under two titans, Nani Palkiwala and Soli Sorabji. Numbers, commerce, and philosophy turned into arguments sharper than steel. Then came his first real test, R.K. Garg versus Union of India, 1981. A young Salve nervous facing a constitutional bench. The Chief Justice cut him short. 1 hour only. But then Justice P.N. Bhagwati leaned forward. This young man is making good points. Let him continue. By evening, even the Attorney General admitted, I will answer Mr. Garg. But first, let me respond to this young man. The case was lost 4-1. But the lone dissent carried his arguments. That day, the legal world whispered, a new name has arrived. Delhi in the 1990s was gasping for breath. Thick smog covered the city. Every bus, taxi or auto, they ran on a dirty fuel. People coughed, children wheezed, and the hospitals were filled. The Supreme Court finally stepped in. It ordered, switch every public vehicle to CNG, a cleaner fuel. The government dragged its feet. Transport unions resisted. Deadlines were missed and chaos brewed. That's when Harish Salve came in as a friend of the court, amicus curiae. He didn't represent a company or a client. He represented the people of Delhi. He pushed and argued until the order was actually followed. Slowly buses turned green with CNG stickers. Slowly Delhi's air began to clear. Not every fight is about money, some are about the air we breathe. He took only 1 rupee to fight for India at the International Court of Justice in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case. He stood in the middle of the Adani-Hindenburg storm when the markets were shaky. He even fought for the athletes in the sports tribunal where the medals and the careers were on the line. Different fights, different arenas. Same Salve. Clear, disciplined and unstoppable. Every day I want to fly, still by my side. Every day I want to dream, still by my side. 2007, Vodafone bought Hutch, one of India's biggest mobile networks. But here's the twist. The deal was done through companies registered outside India. The Indian tax department said, pay the tax in India, while the Vodafone replied, why? The deal happened abroad. The case reached the Supreme Court. For 17 straight days, Harish Salve stood and argued for Vodafone. Every angle, every document, every line of law. In January 2012, the court gave its verdict. India cannot demand this tax and Vodafone had won the case. Investors cheered. They felt safe. If the court says no tax, that should have been the end of the story, right? But then the parliament changed the law. Not just for the future, it changed the law for the past too. All the way back to 1962. Suddenly, Vodafone was back on the hook. The world was shocked. If the rules can be changed after the game is over, how can anyone feel secure? Yet, one thing stood out. Harish Salve had shown what it means to fight with preparation, patience and unmatched focus. Even today, he is as active as ever. In August 2025, he said on national TV that the politicians are not a privileged class. And now he leads India with respect to the water disputes with Pakistan. He teaches young law students at NLU Delhi, and in the Supreme Court he once stood up and said, someone has filed adjournment using my name without even asking me. That is very wrong. A reminder that integrity matters. 8 hours of study and just 8 lines of clarity. That was his mantra. He lived the case, understood every technical diagram and then cut through complexity with surgical precision. Clients called him relentless, judges called him respectful, peers called him unflinching, and his formula was very simple: preparation, patience and presence. Invincibility is an illusion, but discipline is real. From smoky Delhi streets to billion-dollar deals, his method is the same. Learn simply and speak the truth. Winston Churchill once said, success is not final, failure is not fatal, and Harish has lived that line. He turned failure into fuel, preparation into power, and 1 rupee case into a moment of national pride. This is Harish Salve, the Invincible.